Back when I was a sophomore in high school, my friends and I got heavily into just exploring and seeing what there is out in the world. We spent a lot of time in online forums, uploading photos and sharing experiences, but it wasn't too long before we found ourselves in a kind of friendly competition with a group from Ohio. The Michigan-Ohio rivalry is very real, and although we weren't exactly into college football, we still relished the chance to show up our counterparts in the next state over. It was a playful rivalry, however. I mean, who could ever take pride in the whole "my state is more messed up than your state" thing? So, one summer, my friends and I were on a long bike ride, scouting for potential sites in an old rundown industrial area near Kalamazoo. We take a break in this wooded area, and one of my friends goes off into the bushes to pee. About a minute later, we hear them shouting excitedly for us to come look at something. Once we make a few jokes about his junk being nothing to write home about, we follow and lay eyes on his sweet little discovery. It was this old, creepy cave. I mean, it seriously looked like it could have been the secret entrance to the Batcave or something. But a little preliminary exploration revealed that the place was actually an abandoned cement mine. Mines require a lot more specialist equipment. Any seasoned explorer will tell you that it's crucial to bring respirators to anywhere where air quality might be compromised. Mines are filled with all kinds of stuff that you really don't want in your lungs. So, about 2 weeks later, after a fair amount of planning and preparation, all four of us returned to the abandoned cement mine with the appropriate safety gear and a camera, ready to properly explore. We discovered that there was basically one main shaft that sloped deep down into the earth, so we followed that main route. It was wide enough to drive a pack up a pickup truck and was still in pretty decent condition, so traversing the mine shaft was much easier than we'd first thought. There were many rooms, old machinery, and rusting equipment off of this main shaft, but we mostly avoided it in the beginning. We were just trying not to get lost or turned around in the darkness. As we shined our flashlights along the smooth rock walls, we saw that they were almost covered in spray paint graffiti. Mostly just the classic abandoned building stuff. Jimmy was here, swastikas, initials, and dates, etc. But as we got deeper and deeper, the graffiti really thinned out. Whoever was hanging out here before us obviously didn't go too deep into the mine. Probably for a good reason. As we wandered deeper and deeper into the old abandoned mine shaft, all natural light had faded, and we were relying solely on our high-powered flashlights. The air was so stagnant and hazy, with particles that even the light from expensive flashlights would only go 20 feet or so before just getting totally obscured by dust. Oh, and that dust has us thanking the big guy upstairs that we'd remembered to pack them. The glow sticks we had brought were also basically useless because they would disappear in the haze only a few steps after dropping them, and we had only brought a handful. Once we were about 30 feet below the earth, we started arguing amongst ourselves. Our little crew was nervous about going any deeper, with the air quality just being so terrible, and without a good way to prevent us from getting lost. We somehow managed to override our anxieties by reassuring ourselves that the path was easy and straightforward. So, we'd have a hard time getting lost. We were going to rely on our level-headedness, sense of direction, and flashlight battery life to get us out. Despite the agreement to push on, it was becoming very creepy for everyone. We walked in total silence for a long time, hearing nothing but our own footsteps and the steady drip of water coming from somewhere deep in the cave. I think we were all pretty scared at this point, but nobody was willing to admit it to each other. Call it bravado or whatever, but we just kept pushing on, pushing further and further into the mine. We stumbled across something that had us stopped in our tracks. Dug into the sides of the deep stone shaft, we were slowly descending was a diverging tunnel. Little more than a passageway cut into the rock. It was narrow. You'd have to crouch to go through it, and it was also a good few feet off the ground, so it required a scramble to reach it. But that wasn't what made us stop. It was the graffiti. We hadn't seen any for a while, and like I said, we assumed the graffiti artists had never gone this deep. But someone else clearly had, and the messages they left were disturbing to say the least. The tunnel was lined with words written in white, chalky substances. Words like rot, decay, plague, and carry on. They were just words, scrawled by some degenerate, but it scared the living hell out of us. Who else would come this far just to write such a terrible message in a mysterious tunnel that broke from the main path? However, no matter how scared we were, there was no turning back. We had to see where the tunnel led to. Despite our fear, we were overwhelmed by intense curiosity. So as foolish as it seems now, one by one, we crawled through the tunnel to the other side. What we found was a strange flooded chamber. Around the pool of water was a series of these large carved stones, each covered with dozens of burned out candles. There must have been hundreds of pieces of melted wax dripping down each of the stone pieces. The walls had a few twisted, malformed faces scrawled on them, and the tunnel entrance back to the main shaft was ringed with a spray-painted blood-stained mouth. What was this place? Some bizarre cloister where black masses were performed possibly. An elaborate hoax set up by a bunch of kids. We couldn't find much evidence to figure it all out, and we were absolutely exhausted by this point, both from the exertion and the adrenaline crash. We all crawled out of that weird little chamber and back into the main shaft, where we were promptly headed towards the exit. When we finally saw natural light coming from the main entrance, we were relieved beyond words. We never did figure out what that mysterious cavern was for, and I think I'm content to leave it at a mystery. No, we didn't hear any eldritch creatures howling in the depths of the tunnel, nor did we find any entrance devil worshippers, but just finding that room, buried deep in an old forgotten mine, was more than enough to creep all of us out for a very long time. Look, I'm going to keep this email relatively short, simple, and sweet. To the point, you understand me? So, I've done a fair share of spelunking in my day, deep diving in caverns and exploring the uncharted world under the earth we know and inhabit. Well, I don't do that anymore, and that's because I believe I encountered a demon underneath the earth. I'll spare the name of the cavern system, because I can't have anybody hearing this, potentially, and going to check it out themselves and getting lost, or worse, finding what I did. In the southwestern region of the United States features a massive underground cavern system that spans all over and goes well into the Mexican desert. Well, I had spent some months going down here, traversing through as many tunnels as I could, when I encountered the den of what I believed to be a flying demon. Whatever this thing was nearly grabbed me and pulled me deeper into the earth. It looked like a gargoyle, whatever you want to call it. This thing had scales and it had wings. It looked like it was straight out of hell. No joke. It left me traumatized, scarred, and terrified me. It made me want to give up my love of spelunking for good. But I guess I'm not the only one who's had encounters with these same kind of demons. The Sonoran Desert, specifically, is filled with these uncharted cave systems underground, and I guess also filled with these demonic beings and encounters and sightings of these creatures by many other fellow spelunkers. Look, I'm not here to waste your time by feeding you some BS made-up story. After my account, I spent several hours talking and reaching out to fellow spelunkers and even natives of the area, and all of them, or nearly all of them, have their own account to tell, whether it be underneath the earth, exploring the cavernous underground terrain system, or seeing these things ascend into the night, stalking and looking for prey. I know it sounds far-fetched, but you know what? Sometimes there are just things in life that we have to accept as truth. And unfortunately, this is just one of them, even if it means forever giving up my love of spelunking.